Well, good morning, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Cantwell, and I see Senator Curtis has my old chair, so hopefully you do or you have as much fun as I did and do as much good as I tried to do. Senator Marino and all the members of the committee, I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm thrilled to introduce my dear friend Howard Lutnick, who I think is going to make an amazing Commerce Secretary for the United States of America. You know, one of my mentors in business always said that any good business has both product people and sales people. And Howard is one of the few people who is both a product guy and a sales guy. And I want to talk about that because I think that America, as Commerce Secretary, needs a Commerce Secretary who is both a product guy and a sales guy. And what do I mean by that? If you look at his career, Howard is the kind of guy who developed innovative products. He has a number of patents to his name, something I didn't even know when I first got to know Howard, but I learned later. But he's also an incredible sales guy. This is a person who, on the world stage, will say more and do more and convince businesses that America is back, that America is growing and thriving. And I think that will inure to the benefit, most importantly, of American workers who have seen their wages stagnate, their real living standards decline. And Howard is exactly the kind of guy that we need to reverse that trend and get American commerce back on track. Howard is, more than anybody maybe that I've ever met in the private sector, aware, in part because of the fact that he didn't grow up with everything handed to him, of the way in which what happens in the real economy affects real people. And that if we have a thriving, growing economy, we're going to have a stronger national security because we make more of our own stuff. We're also going to have an American workforce that is thriving, that is healthy, that is happy. And of course, that's what we're ultimately, I think, all of us here on the Commerce Committee most focus on. Howard is a force of nature. For those of you who don't know him, and for the employees of the Commerce Department, I will say, with all apologies, you're going to work harder over the next 4 years than you probably have ever worked in your entire life. Howard is the kind of guy who can have you work 90 hours a week and make you feel like you're still energetic at the end of the day because he's working 110 hours a week and he never lets his foot off the gas and he never forgets what the mission is that drives him to do all of the incredible things that he has done and that he will do as Commerce Secretary. Now, I want to say a couple of words about Howard's biography because I think it influences certainly how I think about him, and I think it informs, hopefully, how all of you will think about his nomination. This is not a guy who was handed everything. He grew up in a family where they often struggled to make ends meet. He built one of the most successful and biggest financial firms in the world, and of course had it all destroyed by terrorists on 9/11, 2001. Now, Howard didn't die that day. He lost 600 employees, including, I believe, your brother, Howard. But he didn't die that day because he took his son to kindergarten on the Upper East Side, and so he wasn't in the towers when the planes hit. But what he did in the wake of it is maybe more impressive than what he did before. One, he rebuilt the business to where it is today. Again, one of the great financial firms in the entire world. But more importantly than that, he didn't forget the families of the employees who lost their lives that day. And I will never forget, talk about a good salesman. When I visited New York on the anniversary of 9/11 during the campaign, and as you all know, campaigns are very busy. There's a lot going on. And Howard said, JD, you need to come by my office because on 9/11 every day, and we've done it since 2001, we raise money for the families of the people who lost their lives that day. And I said, Howard, this is the middle of a presidential campaign, man. I'm the vice presidential nominee. And he said, no, you're coming. Trust me, you're coming. And I showed up on the floor, on the trading floor of Cantor Fitzgerald, and every single person was selling and working their tails off, not to make money for Howard Lutnick or the business that day, but to make money for the relief efforts and the families who they still take care of. What is it now, 24 years later? And that's an incredible testament to a guy who doesn't forget where he came from, who doesn't forget the people that he lost that day. And I can't think of a better person to be the Commerce Secretary than a person who is a product guy, who is a sales guy, and who is an incredible human being who doesn't forget the employees that he lost that day. And I want to make one final observation. So Howard has a beautiful family, and it's good to see all the kids here, and his lovely wife. On the campaign trail, As you all know, I have 3 little kids, and I like to take my kids with me on the campaign trail whenever possible because I'm a dad first. And as you also may know, when you have little kids, sometimes little kids don't behave all the time. In fact, they often don't behave. And I remember when we took our kids to Howard's house on the campaign trail, and we actually had a fundraiser that evening in a different place, but we had a few hours. And I told my wife, I said, we're gonna take the kids to my buddy's house, Howard Lutnick's house. And she said, you know, do you really want to take our 3 kids, energetic, wound up, to somebody's house? They're gonna destroy something, they're gonna embarrass us. And I said, Howard's house, his wife's house, yes, actually. And we spent the morning with them, we spent the afternoon with them, and then we went to our event, and I'll never forget afterwards, my wife looked at me and said, we felt like the kids could just be kids. Even though they didn't know Howard, and even though Howard didn't know them, he was a good enough guy to make it possible for our kids to just be kids. And I think that it's important to have the kind of person at Commerce who can't just do the job because Howard can certainly do the job, who hasn't just been wildly successful because, of course, Howard has been wildly successful, but is just a good dude. And Howard is a good dude. He will make us proud as our next Commerce Secretary, but he makes me even prouder to call him a friend. God bless you, man.